Hello, it's the Minor Vortex. Like and subscribe if you like art, basically. um, so I went to a performance yesterday in Glasgow. So I live in Scotland now, and I saw a few acts. There was Celine's Salon, which is who were going up. Basically a salon from down in Soho, and they were doing a performance up in Glasgow. I have a friend who's also involved with a Celine salon, yada yada yada. So I went along and I saw an artist there performing called Jodie Ark. I think it's Jodie Ark. I bought a book for a tenner called Minerva, which is published on Wordville Press, and I read it all on the train on the way back from Glasgow. There's a blurb, picture of Jodie Ark, and the sort of blurb on the back, synopsis on the back. So I'll read the synopsis, and then I'll sort of give. And this is based on a first read, like I said, so it's all going to be quite, sort of first impressions almost in a way. And I think this is a book that actually bears repeat readings. There's quite a lot of subtext and depth in it, but I basically read the synopsis because I don't think that's basically what it's do. The act of taking human form is not for the faint-hearted. It's an incredibly long process that ultimately serves to enforce the simplicity of the human essence on an unattainable, unfathomable entity. Various manoeuvres of consciousness tear and pummel till certainty and confusion forms a low-level hum that allows Minerva to engage on this earthly plane. Alongside the hum sits a perfect fifth of eternal striving. The harmonics of this sound aren't apparent to the human ear, but the wider universe can hear the discord. A cycle of perpetual effort, forever searching for the answer to the meaning, the heart of the matter. So the book itself is basically structured into two parts. The first part is like a story, which has a lot of the sort of dreamlike elements, and is also, but it's also based around this whole idea of the were, and there's various characters that pop up throughout the story. Minerva, I guess, is basically because when I saw this artist perform last night, they were performing as Minerva with like a sort of, I think the artist Joe does a lot of music and other thoughts. She's basically like sort of like polymath sort of artist, so she does all sorts of things, music, and I'll actually read. So she does plays bass guitar in an alternative art punk band, the Twistettes. And also in a band called Gyro Babies. She does DJing. She's also got another. Yeah, so I think it's Minerva Wakes that I was seeing last night. So it's musical, experimental electronic project, somewhere between lush trip hop and gritty dubstep. She's got a debut album called Mirrored Moon. This is a pamphlet. She describes it as a pamphlet. It's a multi-art form project that combines. And then the second part is basically poetry. So, the poems. I'll start with the poems because it's probably easier to talk about those on some respects. They're all they're pretty well formed. I think they relate to the story in terms of the symbols and metaphors they use within. So the first one's Minerva Wakes, which obviously I guess definitely relates to the story. Yeah, so I guess I'll read one because that gives anybody watching a sort of flavour of some of the poetry, I suppose. She dances. Rewind the box. Shapes explode, casting innocent flares and side streets bare. Plumes of colour carnival with brazen eyes, bold of beauty and barrels of pride. Unfolding, engrossing, enchanting, exposing. Slip on glittering gilded glass. On irrelevant step takes a severed path. Colours drip grey down cheeks thick with chances. Irrelevant become irrelevant as magic winds the ballerina and she dances. So, obviously you have to imagine me reading that in a sort of, Scottish accent. It doesn't not going to have the same feeling, as an English man reading it. But that gives you a taste of it, and like the poem's pretty good. I mean, again, they're like sort of poems that you have to read probably a few times to get like different meanings and subtexts. But overall, pretty interesting. Like the form is they're basically page poems, so they're like, mostly actually. They're like, Minerva Wakes isn't so much. That's actually more free verse. Some of the others might be in certain forms, but I have to analyse them, and I've not done that. I've just read it once. Let's get on to the story. So I'm just going to try and recall this from memory as opposed to like looking at the book too much. So the story is this character Minerva. The were I sort of read it as so it's layered in a lot of symbolism in the story, actually. So there's a lot of symbolism in the story. There was, I guess, multiple ways you could probably interpret the were. I sort of interpreted it initially as maybe a sort of feminine force, like possibly, I don't know, nature itself in some ways. A sort of chaotic, free sort of spirit, basically. And again, I say this is based on a first reading. This is an initial impression of the book. I'd have to read it several times to get the different layers of meaning. There is a character there's a few characters that come into it who are sort of, I think, tests for the character, basically. There's a part in the book where there's a character who sort of screws her over in a way, and it sort of becomes then sets up basically the scene for some like growth or like unveiling or of a new truth. I think truth is a big concept in the book, in the story, basically, which Minerva and the were, and I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, it's like the actual story in itself is 18 pages long, so I don't know how many words that is, but yeah, I'd recommend it. I got it for tenner. Like I said, this is just like a really off the cuff. Like I read this on the train today review, and it's not in depth, but I read it on the train today after I bought it at the poetry gig last night, and like you can get it on Wordville. I guess you can probably get it on other platforms basically as well. And that's all I'll say. So I'll just say that. And I guess you go onto wordville.net if you want to buy it. And that's that. If anyone's got any books they want me to review, like if they've done their own books or they just want me to... I mean, like, I think the approach I'm going to take with any book reviews I do is just based on the first read, like what information stays in my head, what information I can analyse just based on reading it and not analysing it too much, but also just, get more feeling based as opposed to analytical reviews, basically. So more like more like that, basically, more just an emotional response after reading the book, as opposed to hardcore going into analysis of grammar and punctuation and all this sort of thing. Which people with better knowledge of English grammar and punctuation could do. I'm not too bad, but I'm not like an expert in that field of English, to be honest. I'm more like Anyway, I'll leave it at that. If you have any requests you want me to review your book or have a look at it or just give my thoughts on it, then just, I'll leave my email below. I won't charge for this, obviously, it's just free. And I will give you my thoughts on your book. Okay, with that, I've been Noah Vortex, Chris. I write myself as well. I've gone to noahvortex.co.uk. You can see some of my, basically a blog of writings and various thoughts. With that, I'll say goodbye.